Welcome to the Women in Tech podcast series, brought to you by Wisconsin Tech Month. This series is all about shining a light on the women who are driving change and breaking barriers in tech. Each episode is about celebrating their journeys, successes, and the impact they're making in our industry. Let's hear their stories. How did you start your journey in tech?
I think, like many of my generation, I kind of stumbled into technology. Back in the day, there weren't IT degrees, really. You didn't go to school for IT, and so you really sort of fell into it. I didn't go to school for IT. My bachelor's was in psychology with adult education philosophy, so great liberal arts education to be able to balance all that. But I'd been working with technology since I was a kid. I had like a VIC-20 and a Commodore 64 and a Trash 80, and I had all of those things growing up because my parents were into technology. So when I started to look at what can I do with a bachelor's in psychology, well, you can go back to school and become a psychologist, which didn't really interest me. I was always staring at my computer. And I went, oh, well, maybe I should do something with that. So I ended up starting into training, and I did IT training because I love technology and I love sharing my love with technology, and I wanted to teach people how to use it. And then I ended up leveraging that into consulting, and I really focused in on technology adoption. So IT is no good if no one actually uses it. Companies spend all kinds of money on IT implementations, and if no one uses it, it's a complete waste of time. So really I stumbled and I fell into this great thing that I've made an incredibly awesome career out of.
What has your experience been like as a woman in this space?
I'll admit it's been challenging at times, but it's also all I've ever known. So I don't really know anything different than to be in this challenging space. I always had to prove that I knew something. I can give you countless examples of others that I worked with. I would say something and they would say, well, I don't think that's right. And then I'd have to prove it. I'd have to prove I was right, sometimes in front of customers because they were undermining me in front of customers. I was in consulting, and it was really, really frustrating. On the other hand, I was also really lucky, and I had some great mentors throughout my time in IT. And I've been able to, go to them and say, okay, how do I handle this situation? Because this can't continue. And there's been times where I just had to suck it up. And deal with it because I wasn't going to change the behavior of everyone around me. This remains a male-dominated industry. It's getting better. It's one of the things I'm working to try to change. And it just takes time and it takes determination, and you have to grow a thick skin, and you have to be willing to challenge the status quo. But I also didn't realize how incredibly demoralizing and exhausting it was to live in that every single day when you go to work, until I landed someplace where they just assumed I was competent. And it was like a complete shock to be someplace where I walk into a meeting, and it was even about something I didn't know a whole lot about, and they just assumed that if I didn't know, I would go and find out and everything would be fine. And I went home that day and I called up a friend and I said, you wouldn't believe what happened today, because she also works in IT and she struggles with this every day. And so I am lucky every single day that I landed where I did, where that competence is just assumed. But I still run into people. I run into students. I work at a technical college and I run into students who question sometimes, which is always interesting.
What do you love most about being in the tech industry?
It's always changing. Nothing stays the same. We are right now living in a time of extreme technology change, right? AI hit like a bomb about 2 years ago, right? All of a sudden, I mean, AI is not new. It's been around since the 1950s. We've been using it in every parts of our day. I mean, I still remember how creeped out I was when like I got in my car and Google told me I was going someplace. I'm like, how did it know? Right? But we've been living with it all our time. But then ChatGPT released this thing, and all of a sudden, everything changed. And so we're just living in this crazy time. And just before that, we had COVID, right? Which is hard to believe that's been like 5 years ago. But we had COVID, and that changed how we interfaced with technology. And we look at podcasts and how it exploded when we started to look at COVID and how do we consume information. And it's just an incredible space. So it's constantly changing. Sometimes it feels like we're chasing a train and we're hoping to catch that thing before it goes off the tracks. But it's so much fun and it's so challenging every single day. There's just never a dull day. And so if that's the kind of world you love to live in, what's not to love about being in tech?
What advice would you give someone entering the tech space today?
Be flexible. Don't get stuck on what you think you need to do. Say yes. See what happens. If you're lucky, you'll land someplace like I did where the culture is actually it's okay to fail. We're told every day by our president, it's okay to fail, just don't burn down a building. So that gives us the space to innovate and to take risks. So say yes. You just never know what's going to happen. If you don't say yes, nothing's going to change. And you're never going to get the opportunities to really grow and see what's out there and explore new spaces and do things that have never been done before. I've been lucky enough in my career that I've been part of a couple of firsts in the world because I said yes. Didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what I was going to get into. It was a little scary, but by saying yes, I got the opportunity to do amazing things and to change people's lives. And there's nothing better than that.
So if people want to learn more about you, to get in touch, to say hi, how can they do that?
Easiest way to do that is LinkedIn. Always works. There's only one of me on LinkedIn, guarantee it. And so Alli Jerger on LinkedIn, you can find me. You can also email me at work. It's ajerger@wctc.edu. But either one of those ways is always the best way to get in touch with me, and I'm happy to talk to anyone about technology.
And that's it for today's episode of the Women in Tech series. A big thank you to our guest for sharing her story and inspiring us all. Make sure you check out all of the amazing things that are happening during Wisconsin Tech Month. There is so much to discover, from workshops to panels to networking events. Stay connected with our incredible community of tech leaders and innovators throughout the month of October. Thanks for listening.